Imagine burying 5 of your 6 children, one after another. Small coffins descending into the cold earth, your hands trembling as you throw the first handful of dirt over each one of them. The sound of soil hitting wood, the unbearable weight of standing at gravesides that should never exist. Now imagine that in the middle of this absolute darkness, in the depths of your grief, you hear a voice that doesn't comfort you, but demands something from you. A voice asking you to leave everything behind and preach the gospel to a world that doesn't want to hear from you. Would you obey? Would you have the strength? Or would you tell that voice to leave you alone in your misery? This is the true story of Maria Woodworth-Etter, a woman who lost everything, who had every reason to turn her back on God, and still said yes. This is not a story about miracles making everything better. This is a story about the brutal, unforgiving cost of obedience. Let's go back to the beginning. Ohio, 1844. Maria Beulah Underwood is born into a poor farming family. Cold winters, hard labor, barely enough food on the table. But her childhood was not just about poverty, it was about loss. At just 10 years old, Maria stands beside her father's deathbed. She watches the life drain from his eyes. She sees her mother collapse in grief, falling into a depression so deep that the woman becomes a ghost in her own home. Darkness enters Maria's life for the first time, and it never really leaves. The little girl must grow up overnight. She works the fields. She takes care of her siblings. She becomes an adult while still a child. At 13 years old, Maria attends a revival meeting. The preacher speaks of fire, of judgment, of salvation. And in that moment, sitting on a hard wooden bench, something happens. Maria feels a burning sensation in her chest, like hot coals pressed against her heart. She hears it clearly, unmistakably. "You will preach my gospel. You will speak my word to the nations." For a moment, she's filled with joy, with purpose. But then reality crashes down on her. It's 1857. Women don't preach. Women don't speak in churches. Women sit in silence, heads covered, voices suppressed. If a woman has a question, she must ask her husband at home, not in public. Women are invisible in the pulpit. The idea of a woman preaching is not just unusual, it's scandalous, it's heretical, it's unthinkable. So Maria does what many people do with callings they can't fulfill. She buries it. She hides it deep inside, like someone hiding embers under ashes, hoping they'll eventually go cold and stop burning. 6 years later, in 1863, Maria marries Philo Woodworth, a dairy farmer. She's 19 years old. She thinks that perhaps in this ordinary life, in this simple existence of being a wife and mother, she can finally silence that voice. She can be normal. She can be safe. And for a while, it seems to work. She has children, 6 beautiful children. 6 lives she loves more than her own breath. She pours all her passion, all that burning call into being a mother. If she can't preach to thousands, she'll preach to 6. If she can't change the world, she'll raise children who will. It seems like enough. It seems like peace. But then death comes knocking. Her first child gets sick. Fever, convulsions. The doctors can do nothing. In those days, medicine was primitive, and childhood diseases were often death sentences. Maria holds her baby as the life leaves its small body. She buries her first child with trembling hands, her heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. She tells herself it was God's will. She tells herself she'll be strong. But death isn't finished with her. The second child dies, then the third, then the fourth, then the fifth. 5 small coffins, 5 graves side by side in the local cemetery. 5 pieces of her heart ripped out and buried in the cold ground. Can you imagine it? Can you imagine the sound of dirt hitting those coffins over and over and over again? The neighbors whispering behind her back, the unbearable silence in a house that should be full of children's laughter. Maria falls into a depression so deep, so dark, that she can barely function. She spends entire days lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying every moment with each child. Their first words, their laughter, their last breaths. Her husband, Philo, doesn't know what to do. He's a practical man, a farmer, not equipped to handle this level of grief. He becomes distant, cold, retreating into his work while his wife drowns in sorrow. The neighbors whisper that Maria has gone mad. They avoid her in town. They don't know what to say. And honestly, what could anyone say? What words exist for such loss? And it's in this moment, in this absolute pit of despair, that the voice returns. Not gentle, not comforting, demanding. Preach my gospel. Maria screams alone in her room, her voice raw with rage and pain. How? How can I preach when I've buried my children? How can I speak of a good God when you've taken everything from me? What kind of God are you? She waits for an answer, for some explanation that makes sense of this nightmare. But all she hears is the same command: preach. The voice doesn't explain. It doesn't apologize. It just calls. And Maria realizes she has a choice. She can die in this darkness, consumed by grief and bitterness, or she can obey, even though it makes no sense, even though she doesn't understand, even though it feels impossible. In 1879, Maria is 35 years old. She survived what no mother should survive: 5 dead children, 1 surviving daughter, a cold, distant marriage, a life that feels more like a tomb than an existence. And she makes a decision that everyone around her thinks is insane. She decides to obey. She tells Philo she's going to preach. He looks at her like she's lost her mind completely. "Women don't preach, Maria. It's not done. You'll be humiliated. You'll be rejected. You'll destroy what little reputation we have left." She looks at him with hollow eyes and says simply, "I have to." Philo doesn't support her. He doesn't stop her either. He just withdraws further. Their marriage becomes a cold formality, 2 people living in the same house but worlds apart. Maria goes to her local church and tells the pastor she wants to preach. He laughs, actually laughs in her face. "Sister, women don't preach. It's against scripture. It's against decency. Go home and take care of your family." She tries other churches, same response: laughter, dismissal, sometimes anger. You're rebelling against God's order. You're being prideful. You're deceived. But Maria doesn't stop. If churches won't have her, she'll preach anywhere that will. She starts in a barn, literally a barn with hay on the ground and the smell of animals in the air. A handful of curious farmers show up, more for entertainment than anything else. A woman preaching? This should be good for a laugh. But when Maria opens her mouth, something happens. The words that come out carry a weight, an authority that silences the snickering. She doesn't preach like the men they've heard before, with their theological arguments and careful logic. She preaches from a place of deep, raw pain. She speaks of a God who doesn't promise to take away suffering, but promises to meet you in it. She speaks of resurrection, of life coming from death, of purpose emerging from ashes. And people start to fall, literally fall to the ground as if struck by an invisible force. They begin trembling, weeping, crying out for God. Some lie motionless for hours, later claiming they saw visions of heaven and hell. The news spreads. There's a woman preaching and strange things are happening. More people come, hundreds, then thousands. Maria sets up meetings in open fields because no building can hold the crowds. 5,000 people at one meeting, 10,000 at another, 25,000 people gathering in a single campaign. These aren't small numbers for the 1800s. These are massive gatherings that require special trains to bring people in. And the phenomena continue. People falling under what they call the power of God. Healings begin to occur. The newspapers document it. The blind receive sight. The paralyzed walk. The deaf hear. Skeptics come to expose her as a fraud and leave converted. Doctors come to study the phenomenon and leave confused, unable to explain what they're witnessing. Maria preaches with a fearlessness that terrifies and captivates in equal measure. She has no theological training, no seminary degree, no official ordination. But she has something more powerful. She has nothing left to lose. She's already faced the worst thing a person can face. She's already walked through the valley of the shadow of death 5 times. What can people do to her? Mock her? She's been mocked. Reject her? She's been rejected. Threaten her? Death has already taken everything she loved most. She's untouchable in the strangest way, freed by her very losses to be completely obedient to this mysterious, demanding call. But the attacks come anyway. Religious leaders call her a heretic, a false prophet, a tool of Satan. They say she's operating under demonic power, that the phenomena at her meetings are manifestations of evil.
If this story shook something inside you, if it made you question what real obedience looks like, then don't let it end here. Hit that subscribe button right now, because we're diving deep into the lives of people who paid the ultimate price for their faith. These aren't your comfortable Sunday school stories. These are the dark, raw, unfiltered accounts